Tisztelt Metsola elnök!
President Metsola, President von der Leyen, honourable members of the European Parliament. I've come here today following the examples of Mr. Draghi and Mr. Macron, because the European Union needs to change, and I would like to convince you about that today. Hungary is now holding the presidency for the second time since 2011, the rotating presidency of the Council. Now, I personally am doing this. I'm here for the second time presenting the programme of the Hungarian presidency. I've been a member of Parliament for 34 years, and so I know that it is an honour for me that you are here listening to me. Speaking before parliamentary members as a Prime Minister is always an honour. And I have some measure of comparison, because in 2011, when we held the presidency for the first time, we were also in the midst of a crisis. We had the consequences of the financial crisis, the repercussions of the Arab Spring, and also the Fukushima disaster to contend with. We promised a stronger Europe, and we managed this. We adopted the first European-level Roma strategy and the Danube strategy as well. Under our presidency, we launched the European semester, the coordination process. And this lives up to its name. And under our presidency, it was the last time that the European Union successfully concluded accession negotiations with the accession of Croatia. And this all took place in 2011. It wasn't easy, but the work we face today is much more difficult than that we faced then. It's more difficult because the situation in the European Union is far more serious than it was in 2011. And perhaps it's the most serious period in the history of the European Union. What can we see today? In Ukraine, in Europe, war is raging. There are serious conflicts which are devastating the Middle East and Africa. And every conflict faces the risk of escalation. The migration crisis has not been as serious, has never seen levels not reached since 2015. And there are many threats. And there is the risk of the Schengen area falling apart. And meanwhile, Europe is losing in terms of global competitiveness. According to Mario Draghi, Europe faces slow agony. And Mr. Macron also said that Europe may die because of the market situation. Honourable members, we can see that we face decisions which affect the fate of Europe. President, of course, the presidency involves coordinating and organising and administrative work. And I can tell you, we have already had 485 meetings, 24 council meetings, 8 formal and 12 informal council meetings. We've had 69 presidency events in Brussels, 92 events in Hungary. And at the Hungary events, we saw more than 10,000 people attending. And I'd like to inform you that the legislative work at the Council is full steam ahead. 52 legislative files are being worked on at various levels of the Council. The presidency is ready to start trilogue negotiations at any time with the European Parliament, and currently There are 2 files on which we are carrying out trilogues with you, but there are 41 files which require that, and we hope that that can take place. We know that the elections took place this year as well, and we are currently in the midst of an institutional transition. But over the next few months, we are prepared to cooperate with you on the 41 files requiring coordination. The Hungarian presidency will work as an honest broker and will seek constructive cooperation with all institutions. However, the presidency will also defend the tasks for the Council, such as, and this is in regard to the institutional agreement as well. Honourable members, President, but the presidency is not just about administration. The Hungarian presidency also has political responsibility. And this is why I have come to you here today in Strasbourg, so that I can present what the Hungarian presidency proposes to Europe in these times of crisis. The most important thing is that our union needs to change. And the presidency wants to be the catalyst for this change. The decisions need to be taken by member states and the EU institutions, not the Hungarian presidency. The Hungarian presidency will raise issues and problems and will make proposals for the peace, prosperity of Europe. We want to raise the issue of competitiveness. And I share in almost most regards Mr. Letta, Mr. Draghi's conclusions. In the past 2 decades, economic growth in Europe has been significantly slower than in China and the United States. The EU productivity is growing at a slower pace than our competitors, and our share of global trade is going down. EU businesses are paying 2 to 3 times more in energy prices than in the United States, and this is 4 to 5 times when it comes to natural gas. And moving away from Russian energy has endangered EU GDP growth, and we've now needed to focus on energy support and imports of and building the infrastructure for liquefied natural gas. Half of European businesses, when it see energy prices as the main obstacle to investment, and when it comes to industries that have intensive use of energy, which is important in Europe, the production has gone down by 10 to 15% in those cases. The Hungarian presidency proposals that we should not fall into the illusion that the green transition is in itself a solution to this problem. That's not the case. And even if we manage to achieve our goals for renewable energy, so if we achieve our goals, let's imagine that, let's be positive. According to all analyses, by 2030, the number of operational hours from fossil fuels will not go down. So that's something that we need to really face. Basically, the foundation of the European Green Agreement is to create new green jobs. But the essence of this initiative could be called into question, because if decarbonisation leads to the loss of jobs, for example. And when it comes to the automotive industry, the lack of one of the best examples of a lack of planning in the EU. Here, climate policy is being applied without industrial policy. So we're applying climate policy when there isn't any industrial policy. However, the EU has not incentivized the transformation of supply chains. Therefore, EU companies have lost significant market share. And if we look at, and if we move towards trade restrictions, and there are such plans, then I think that we will lose even more market share. Honourable members, the productivity gap between the USA and the EU is mainly down to digital technology. And I think that we are falling behind in that, and that gap is actually increasing. Our companies spend half as much in research and development, proportionate to GDP, as companies in the United States. And then if you add to that unfavorable demographic changes, we've seen the figures. Migration does not compensate for the decline in the European population. So this means that for the first time in modern European history, we are entering a period when our GDP increase will not support will not be able to support increase in manpower and labour force. Mr. Macron also mentioned this. I think that the series is serious and we need to act. We are at the 21st hour and we need to remain focused. And it's much more difficult to create capacities than maintain them. The loss of skills is very difficult to replace. Now, I'm not going to say that there is a simple, straightforward answer to this. These are very serious challenges and serious problems. However, at the beginning of the institutional cycle, I'd like to make it clear that member states are waiting for very swift action from the EU institutions. We, as member states, want to see a reduction in the administrative burden. We want to see less regulation, energy security, a green industrial policy, strengthening the single market, capital market union. And we also want to see a broadening of trade policy. Rather than forming blocks, we need to have more interconnectivity. Madam President, there are some success stories that we can build on. The battery sector in the EU that's developing is one of those successes, and that's what Mr. Draghi highlighted. The public funding of batteries in recent years has grown by 18%, and this was key in strengthening Europe's position. And now we are in third place in the world for this. And we've seen significant improvement in patents recorded as well. And so this strategic intervention has been successful and has shown results. Honourable members, the aim of the Hungarian presidency is to adopt a new European competitiveness deal. At the informal meeting in Budapest on the 8th of November, that's a new competitiveness deal. I firmly believe that highest level commitment will give impetus and momentum to the change that is needed. I suggest that we put this in the heart of our action plan for this institutional transition. Now, after competitiveness, I'd like to say a few words about the migration crisis. For years now, we've seen migration pressure in Europe, significant burden, especially for member states with an external border of the EU. We need to protect the external borders of the EU. Protecting the external borders of the EU serves the interests of the entire EU, and therefore we should provide meaningful support to those countries and to that end. It's not the first time that I'm here before you. It's not the first time I'm saying this. Since 2015, Hungary and I myself have been having lively debates about migration. I've seen many things. I've seen initiatives, proposals, packages, with lots of hope, and they've all been proved unsuccessful. And there's one reason for that, believe me. Without outside hotspots, we cannot protect Europeans from illegal migration. If we allow somebody in, we cannot ever send them home. The only solution is the outside hotspots. We can only allow those into the territory of the EU who previously received authorization to do so. And that is any other solutions are quite frankly an illusion. The European asylum system is simply not working. Illegal migration is leading to anti-Semitism, violence against women, and an increase in homophobia. Several member states Several of you are protesting against what I'm saying, but I would like to say that the facts speak for themselves. In Europe, illegal migration is increasing anti-Semitism, violence against women, and homophobia. Now, you may not like it, but these are the facts. As the result of this unsuccessful migration policy is clear. Many member states would like to create an opt-out. Honourable members, illegal migration and fears for security have led to border controls being reinstalled. I think it's now time to deal with this at the highest political level and to see whether we can re-establish the proper functioning, or the political will to ensure the proper functioning of the Schengen area. The Hungarian presidency is making a proposal, that is, to create a system of Schengen summits. We should organize Schengen summits on a regular basis, so that the heads of government of the Schengen countries can come together. Because this has happened already. When we responded to the 2008 crisis, an important part were the summits of the Eurozone countries. This was a successful example of cooperation. And this led to an international convention being introduced in 2012. And now we face a similar crisis, so we need a similar political commitment, Schengen summits. And then we need to institutionalize that through an international agreement. The Hungarian presidency is not just proposing, Madam President, that we strengthen the Schengen area and extend the Schengen area. The Hungarian presidency is also proposing that by the end of the year, Bulgaria and Romania should fully join the Schengen area. Honourable members, In addition to migration, there are many other security challenges facing Europe. And on the 7th of November, 2 days after the American presidential election in Budapest, there will be a summit meeting of the European political community, and that would be a very appropriate forum for those discussions. We need to face the fact that when we talk about European security, that now the Union is not able to establish its and maintain its own peace and security. We need to strengthen European defence and security policy, and one of the best paths of that for the Hungarian presidency is to strengthen the technological base and defence industry in Europe. The Hungarian presidency will focus on European defence strategy. But the challenges are multifaceted because they deal with many different competences and require international structures. And we can also recommend the example of Hungary, because we spend 2.5% of our GDP on defence and defence development. The vast majority of our defence procurement comes from Europe, and in all sectors of our defence industry, we deal with key players in Europe. Now, if this can be done in Hungary, then it can be done across the European Union. Madam President, another key topic for the the Hungarian presidency is enlargement. We need to have a merit-based, balanced enlargement policy in Europe. It needs to stay that way. The Hungarian presidency firmly believes that we need to accelerate the accession of Western Balkans. This is a key issue for Europe. Integrating the Europe economically, in terms of security, and also geopolitically is advantageous for the European Union. We need to focus in particular on Serbia. Without Serbia joining the EU, we cannot stabilize the Balkans. As long as Serbia is not a member of the European Union, the Balkans will remain an unstable region. I can inform you, ladies and gentlemen, that several candidate countries meet the technical requirements, but there isn't political consensus for the accession. Remember that for 20 years ago now, the EU made a promise to the countries of the Western Balkans with prospects for joining the European Union. According to the Hungarian presidency, it's time to comply with that promise. What we have done is we are organizing a Western Balkan summit. We hope to see progress made at that summit. I'd now like to talk about agriculture in Europe. We all know that the competitiveness of the farming sector in Europe is affected by climate conditions, the skyrocketing costs, and also imports from third countries, and excessive regulation. I don't think it's an exaggeration to say that this is risking the livelihoods of farmers. Food production and food security is a strategic issue for all countries and for the EU. Therefore, the Hungarian presidency would like to give political orientation to the new European Commission to have a farmer-friendly and competitive farming sector. Honourable members, the Hungarian presidency has also launched a strategic debate beyond agriculture but on cohesion policy as well. I'm sure you know that 1/4 of the EU's population live in regions where the development level does not reach the 75% of the EU average. Therefore, it's absolutely essential for Europe to reduce these discrepancies between regions in Europe. Cohesion policy is not charity and it's not donation. It's one of the best forms of investment policy in the EU to ensure that it's a prerequisite for balancing out the single market. The Hungarian presidency believes continuing this is key in maintaining the potential of European competitiveness. Honourable members, Madam President, the Hungarian presidency is finding solutions to common European problems which are based on common sense. But we're not just looking for solutions. We Hungarians in the European Union are also seeking our dreams of a community of free states and a democracy of all democracies. We are looking for God-fearing and a Europe of different cultures. We're not members of the European Union because this is how it is. No, we're part of the European Union because of what it can be, what it can become. And if we can see that Europe can be improved, then we will be fighting for that. The Hungarian presidency is interested in improving the European Union, and we believe the success of our presidency will also mean success for the entire European Union. Let's make Europe great again. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.